Hi, friends. Welcome to Business and Careers. My name is Vikram Limsay. Today, I'm going to take you through a very interesting industry or a sector, the chemical industry. Now, this industry is not as sexy or much talked about like the IT or pharma or biotech or so many other sectors, but this industry is at the core of everything that happens around you, not just as an individual, but even as a business. Right from the morning when you kind of brush your teeth, for the clothes that you wear or this food that you eat, to the business that you're involved in, the stuff that you use at work, the mining, metals, metallurgy, everywhere, this industry is kind of omnipresent. It has serious opportunities for those who want to get into this business in this sector as a business, or people looking for jobs. And I thought it's great if we can get somebody who knows the entire industry fully to talk to you today. So today I'm going to be inviting to the channel Mr. Ravi Raghavan. He is the publisher of the premier chemical industry publication called the Chemical Weekly. Not just that he's an editor, he's the kind of voice that is most acclaimed and respected in the industry. He's had multiple decades, close to 4 decades in the industry. He is from UD City, Mumbai, and then I think he's done his MS in polymer chemistry from Drexel in US. A fantastic gentleman who has a complete overview of this whole industry, and I thought it'll be great to have a short chat with him to give all of you and myself a kind of flavor of where this industry is going, because such an important sector and at the core of everything that we do on a day-to-day basis. So welcome to Business and Careers again, and let's have Mr. Ravi Raghavan on board. Ravi, welcome to Business and Careers. It's my pleasure and honor, and in fact, we're indeed glad to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. You're most welcome.
So, Ravi, I've, as in the introduction, I've already told the channel and our audience that you're one of the foremost authorities on this chemical industry, and everybody is looking forward to hearing from you. Our audience, just to keep you in the loop, is mostly entrepreneurs, professional managers, and students. A lot of students also are there. So primarily the interest, Ravi sir, is between people who want to start small businesses, or people who want to look at the industry from a job perspective, or even students from a job perspective. And so
Right.
generally, what are the opportunities and how it is structured in India? Essentially, we'll stick to India, and of course, from you, we'll go for a global perspective. So I'll kick off, and then I'll kind of leave the house to you. And I'll kick off by saying that if you could just give us a brief about how the industry is structured in India and globally, its market size and those kind of things. Take it away, sir.
Right. Okay. It just so happens that I have been tracking this industry for now close to 40 years. So by the sheer number of years I've spent eyeing the industry from a publisher's perspective, I guess gives me some views and perspectives on the business, which I am happy to share. I want to start off by saying that the chemical industry is not an optional industry. Okay, it is central to modern living. It makes our lives healthier, wealthier, safer, and it is an industry of industries. There are some products of the industry that consumers, you and I, in our daily lives face. But by and large, you do not buy chemicals individually. As consumers, we seldom buy chemicals. We may buy a nail polish, we may buy a toothpaste, we may buy a soap, we may buy a detergent, we may buy a paint. All of these contain chemicals. So my limited point here is this is a vital industry. No country on this planet which is industrialized has ignored this industry. So there is a desire to build competence in manufacturing in the broad chemical space as much as one can. In today's globalized world, and some would say a de-globalizing world as well, there are other commercial challenges which restrict what you can make competitively and what you cannot. But the theme of self-sufficiency, some innate capabilities is consistent across countries.
You could give us a flavor of how the industry is structured, what are the broad segments, and what is the size, especially in India? They claim it's $30 billion, and we are,
Right,
that would
right.
be nice.
So, globally speaking, the industry is roughly about $4.5 trillion in size. Now, out of this, China alone is about 1.5 trillion. China is about
40%.
percent of the global chemical industry today, and it is the fastest growing segment of the fastest growing region, has been so both from a production as well as from a consumption standpoint. These numbers are somewhat nebulous because it depends on what you count as a chemical industry and what you don't. For example, some people like to call the pharmaceutical industry also as part of the chemical industry. Some would call the oil and refining industries as part of the chemical industry. Fertilizers would sometimes be included, sometimes excluded, etc.
You say 4 trillion, you are including the pharma and chemical and fertilizer all put together in this?
Yes, yes and no, because what people tend to do is that, for example, in the pharmaceutical industry, you have a segment of the industry which makes the finished medicines, which is
Okay,
what you and I consume. Those are the formulated products. They could be pills, they could be capsules, they could be injections, what have you. Uh, But
understand.
there is also the what are called active pharmaceutical ingredients that go into these drugs. This is the stuff that actually cures you. So if you buy a strip of crocin, you would see on that paracetamol 500 milligrams. So what that says is that every pill that is there in that box contains 500 milligrams of the active ingredient, which is paracetamol. The manufacture of paracetamol is by and large a chemical industry. Okay, the formulation part tends to be counted out of this industry. Now, what happens here is that the pharma industry doesn't like to be called a chemical industry. Okay. Uh, but if you were to look at the active pharmaceutical manufacturing business, it is really about chemical transformations. Uh,
Yeah.
with the stringency of regulatory compliance, quality assurance, all of those are built into the manufacturing system.
Okay.
So
So out of the 100 trillion global GDP, 4% is chemical, even if we count all this, and of
that
that 4 trillion, around 2 odd trillion is China.
we are roughly speaking about a 250 to 60 billion dollar industry today, which puts it as very really punching below our weight. If you consider the fact that we and China, there's not much difference in our populations, so we're really punching below our weight in terms of chemical production as well as in chemical consumption. So which brings me to that point that this is the bad news, but the good news of this, the flip side of this, is that the potential, the headspace to grow is substantial. Okay. So there have been all kinds of estimates as to where the Indian chemical industry can grow from here, go from here, and some very optimistic projections put it at $1 trillion by about 2045. Okay.
Okay.
I mean, you could quibble with some of these numbers, argue and say that, oh, that's not going to happen given all our constraints, etc., etc. And I also tend to agree with some of that. But the point to note is that the direction can only be upwards, and there is a lot of momentum which is left in the industry for growth, purely from a domestic market opportunity. I have not even come to the export market opportunity, which also exists. Okay, I'll address that a little later. Now, for the structure of the industry, I mean, how do we classify this industry? The one way to do that is in three buckets. What are called commodity chemicals, what are called fine chemicals, and what are called specialty chemicals. Okay. Commodity chemicals are, like the term says, are commodities. They are sold largely on the basis of price. They are undifferentiated across producers. So you could buy from A, B, and C, and pretty much if they are good quality producers, they would be all making the same thing. So it's price which is the differentiating factor by and large. They are made in very, very large volumes. That's another characteristic. They are almost always made in dedicated plants, which are built for us, to operate in continuous mode. So they would run 24/7. Of course, there are shutdowns taken as and when you need to set things right, maintenance, blah, blah. But by and large, they would be, running continuously from very capital intensive to build, not too manpower intensive. They don't require too many people. There are probably 5 people sitting in a control room who could run the plant.
Okay.
There's probably not even anybody on the shop floor, literally speaking. The important thing in commodity chemicals is the access to feedstock. How competitively and how smoothly, from a logistics perspective, you can access feedstock really determines your competitiveness. And feedstock in the chemical industry, by and large, even till date, is of fossil origin. It could come mostly from a barrel of crude. So countries which have crude oil reserves, which have refining capacities, which have natural gas, these are the companies which are extremely well placed in the commodity chemicals business. And this business is also sometimes referred to as the petrochemical business because of the petroleum origins of most of the products that come. Petroleum-based products.
Okay.
Petroleum per se is not a chemical. It's a whole range of molecules there, and what happens in the industry is that in the industry, the refining companies and what are called the crackers, they take these petroleum products and they literally crack it, and they make simpler molecules out of it, which then becomes the feed for a whole range of chemicals. Okay.
Like a wax or a paraffin and
Right. All of that comes out of a refinery. The most single largest volume chemical made is a chemical called ethylene. And ethylene then becomes, for many things, it becomes the feedstock, and things like polyethylene, for example, which is your plastic film. You got the ethylene glycol, which goes into your car as a coolant. All kinds of stuff. The second part of the industry, and are what are called fine chemicals. These are chemicals which are produced in smaller volumes. These are chemicals which are often made in batch processes. These are made in the capital intensity of some of these plants is not that high, and there is a fair bit of labor which is involved in the manufacture of these products. They are also more chemistry intensive rather than engineering intensive, which is the case with the bulk petrochemical and the commodity chemical aspect. Now, fine chemicals, I said, are made in smaller volumes, but some of those volumes are not really very small. They could be in the range of, say, 10,000 tons, 20,000 tons, kind of that order. We are not talking million of tons here. We are talking about tens of thousands of tons, or sometimes few thousand.
any examples to help me understand fine chemicals?
An example of a fine chemical would be something like a citric acid.
Okay.
Citric acid, which is used, for example, as as an acidulant in soft drinks.
Okay.
It is there are I mean, there are tons of examples, but I will
So
not.
these are basically chemical lab-based formulations, different from the commodity which are
No.
from there. Is it?
So I won't use the word formulations
Okay.
because fine chemicals are also discrete chemicals. Okay. They are sold on the basis of their chemical identity. They typically, if a bulk commodity chemicals is priced in the range of $2 to $20 per kg, fine chemical would be priced approximately in the range of $20 to $100 per kg. I'm giving you, very, very generic numbers here. But they are all sold on the basis of chemical identity.
Okay.
There is a possibility of some differentiation in fine chemicals depending on the quality standards and the end use segment that you are catering to. For example, there are molecules for fine chemicals which are made for multiple applications. They could go into, for example, a perfumery compound. They could go into an industrial paint. Now, the quality which is required in the perfumery compound would be much greater, and there would be more tightening of the specifications in that. So the pricing could also be very different. So there are some opportunistic plays there in terms of what you can access, what markets you can access, what you should focus on, etc. The third part is what you mentioned, which is the formulations. These are chemicals which are offered not on the basis of what they are, but on the basis of what they do. So some people tend to call them performance chemicals. They are offered as a solution. They could be, for example, a dye fixing agent, which make sure that a dye which is put on a textile stays in the textile and does not bleed. Now, companies that use this buy it as a dye fixing agent. They may or may not even know what the chemical composition is. So that it is offered by companies as a solution. And as you can kind of guess, there is an opportunity for a supplier to offer more than a product. He can offer a service.
Okay.
So there is
So this is called specialty chemicals also?
called specialty chemicals or performance chemicals.
Okay.
The term has come to be misused a lot because everybody likes, especially in the capital markets today, to impress the markets. Every company likes to talk about being in the specialty business, which is they want to make differentiated products. They are making higher margin products, etc. True specialties have become rare because of the competitive nature of the beast. So that in some
Great.
is the broad structure
Okay.
of the industry.
Excellent. Sir, what is this? We've always heard the segmentation in terms of organic chemicals and inorganic chemicals. I mean, is that
Yeah.
wrong or is it this commodity and
No. That is also, you can describe things based on various criteria. I
Mhm.
described one set of criteria on which you can distinguish. The organic chemical industry is, the word organic itself means it is carbon containing.
Hmm.
And the bulk of the organic industry comes from petroleum. So it's in some
So it's
sense,
commodity basically?
it is commodity. It could be fine chemical as well, but it is mostly carbon containing. The inorganic chemicals do not contain carbon.
Okay. Yeah,
There,
that yes.
yeah,
I
there.
thought that was in our college days we were told that kind of
Oh,
segmentation.
yes, that is very much there. For example, in the inorganic chemical, a very large industry today is what is called the caustic soda industry, which is the alkali industry, which produces the caustic soda to go into various kinds of application. There's no
Okay.
carbon involved in that. It is produced from salt water.
Okay.
So
So this entire industry, which you have kind of eloquently put, which is specialty fine and specialty the
commodity.
formulations, how is it segmented across this $4 trillion or 250
So they
billion dollars in India? How does that work?
So roughly about 60% would be commodity chemicals.
Okay.
Again, the segmentation would vary because depending on whether you segment on the basis of value or you segment in terms of volume.
Okay.
Let's
Let's
set
do
that.
value.
Yeah, so broadly speaking, because of the commodity chemicals being large volume chemicals, they tend to be dominant. They would roughly account for about 60% of the space.
Okay, and the balance 40 would be equitably.
More or less equitably distributed between fine and specialty chemicals.
Okay, okay. Excellent. I mean, thanks. The idea is perfect now. So I think I've got a broad structure for the first time. What are the trajectory? I mean, is it how is it in India? Is it growing? Which segment is growing? Which is kind of on a little bit of a loose wicket? What is your view on that? And globally, of course, both of them.
Globally, the industry grows in line with GDP. So, the classical growth rates in the historical growth rates were about 1.2x GDP. But now I think it has moderated for various reasons. I mean, this is a mature industry in most parts of the world.
Okay.
In the developed world, etc. Due to various reasons, demand growth has kind of plateaued, and some would say even on a decline.
Oh,
There are demographic declines which are happening. Populations are aging in most of the Western world. So when you age, you tend to consume more. I am unlikely to buy a house when I'm 70 years old. I will probably buy it when I'm 30, 40.
but from a production point of view, also, I mean, that would be from a consumption point of view.
Correct.
From a production point of view, also, it is linked so much to GDP. I mean,
From a production standpoint, what has happened is really one factor, and that is the emergence of China. China's very rapid growth in the broad chemical industry has put competitiveness of other segments under a big question mark. So as we speak today, the most seriously affected region for chemicals is Europe. Europe has no access to energy, cheap energy, no access to feedstock, which is hydrocarbon-based feedstocks. They've got a shrinking population. They've got an aging population. They got extremely tight regulatory environment. So all of this has come together. They for a long time they had access to Russian oil.
mhm.
They were making in Europe to feed the Chinese market. But now with China ramping up production, China getting to self-sufficiency, I mean, as a stated goal, raising the level of self-sufficiency in the country, and in many value chains go well beyond self-sufficiency. So they have now taken on the world. So that's China.
So what's this? What are the advantages? I mean, does a country need a strategic advantage in this industry? Like, do we as a country have that? Because you said energy probably
Right.
would be.
So
Yeah.
yes, I'm glad you asked that question, because I think competitiveness. Uh, no country makes everything that it needs. So there is a fair bit of trade in chemicals, which has been impacted now because of all the chaos which is happening. And for some time now, there has been a kind of deglobalization, regionalization, which has crept into the business. Uh, so I'll rephrase this and I'll ask, what is the competitive position of India in
Right.
the chemical space? I think we don't have access to hydrocarbon resources. So we can create some because of the large refining capacities that we have built. Because all said and done, what comes out of a refinery is what goes into a petrochemical complex. And then the petrochemical complex gives you all the molecules that you need to build further downstream. It is my belief that the further you further you go from a barrel of crude, the less dependent you are on the value of that crude as a factor determining your competitiveness.
Interesting.
So my surmise is that India's competitive position is best in more down the value chain products, the fine chemical, specialty chemical products,
Okay.
rather than the bulk petrochemical products, where access is really determined by how cheap you can get your feedstock.
Excellent.
Right. So
Yeah.
this is I mean, I'm being very generic here.
No, but get the point rather. I mean,
But this is the broad spectrum.
right.
Having said that, there is no country which says that, oh, I will not make any pet bulk chemicals. I will only do fine and specialty chemicals. They try to do a little bit of the others as well. So it's a question of company strategy, what kind of scale you're built, and that can give you a competitive play. And good example of that is Reliance, for example. I
Yeah.
mean, they have built a substantial scale in whatever businesses that they do in the refining petrochemicals business.
So, like you said, from the source point of view, you've made it very clear. It's understanding now that, commodities, if you're not close to the barrel, then you kind of lose that advantage. Similarly, from a user sector point of view, also, is there some thought there that if you're closer to, let's say perfumes, or whether you're closer to agrochemicals, whether you're from a user segment point of view, which is the highest user segment? A pharma, I guess, would be big.
Well, pharma is big. So chemicals go into hundreds and thousands of products.
Almost
Just
everything,
to
yes.
give you an example, there are roughly speaking, about 10,000 chemicals which are there in commerce. I mean, 100 times more have been identified as existing and made, etc., etc. But in commerce, in business, there are roughly about 10,000 which are used. And these go into all kinds of industries. You take a paint industry, for example. And if you put a paint on the wall, a paint is really what is there in a paint. There is a color which comes from a pigment, which is a product of the chemical industry. There is a resin which holds the pigment together and covers it on your wall, and the resin is pure chemistry. There is a solvent in which it is dispersed so that you can apply it, and that solvent can be water, but sometimes it is not. But that also, the solvents are all chemicals. 98% of what is in a can of paint are chemicals. Uh, Likewise, I mentioned pharma to you, the main ingredients that grow into pharma, what you need in crop protection. For example, the herbicides and the pesticides and the insecticides that you spray to keep your crops healthy, those are chemical inputs. So
Correct. No, what I was trying to draw your attention was, or rather gain clarity, was that is domestic demand a big driver for the attractiveness of this industry? Because
absolutely. I think uh, every country in the world, except probably for some countries like Singapore, etc., which don't have much of a population, etc. Most countries build capacity to largely cater to the domestic market.
so in that sense, for us, it is big then.
It is very big, but we haven't scratched the surface of it, because, as I said, it's related to purchasing power. It is related to your economic standing. It is related to GDP, per capita income, etc. So as all of these rise, two things happen: you consume more, and the type of products that you consume become more sophisticated.
Okay.
So if I were to give you a simple example, if you were to buy a cheap shampoo, you would upgrade to a slightly higher one. If you were to buy a powder detergent, you may go into a liquid detergents. So which means that the kind of chemicals that you use get a little more sophisticated. They can become, so there are opportunities that open up for higher value products as well.
Interesting. And is this whole thing about, like, I've found in some of our beauty clients, this FMCG clients, there is this big thing that we are not going to be using chemicals, but we'll be using natural products. Is that a myth, or it generally happens? And does it kind of impact the industry so much, or no?
So I think good. I mean, I'm glad that you asked this question, because I think there is a lot of confusion. Uh, I mean, bear in mind that the deadliest poisons in nature are natural products. Okay, so it's a myth to believe that what comes natural is safe, and what comes from a synthetic source is dangerous. Okay, so that's one part of it.
Interesting.
A very large portion of even the so-called natural products that you will see in the market today. For example, a natural, let's say a toothpaste, they would still contain chemicals because that is what delivers the performance. They are able to call themselves natural because they have one or 2% of some clove oil or neem oil or something of that sort, and they are able to kind of give it that spec. Having said that, I don't want to dismiss the trend of growing natural. I mean, it is a real trend uh, in especially consumer-facing products. For example, the creams and the lotions and the shampoos and things like that that you
Even
see.
agri, fertilizers and all that?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. But here, great caution is needed. It's wonderful to talk about using natural fertilizers, etc. I refer you to the Sri Lanka experiment.
I was about to come there, but
Okay.
yeah, go ahead.
So, they decided, lo and behold, one day that, okay, I am not going to be using chemical fertilizers anymore. And I'm going to switch to, compost and manure and stuff like that. Tea production in Sri Lanka plummeted. And, some people believe that was one of the triggers for the political backlash that followed. Sri Lanka is 1/100th the size of India. India is in no position to adopt any such policy, and I don't think any government in its senses will say that we don't need chemical fertilizers. No country, we do not need chemical pesticides. There is no way India will be able to sustain its food production, which is now very, very impressive. We are surplus in food grains. We are surplus in corn. I mean, so there is no way you can do that. The plant doesn't care where the nitrogen or the phosphorus comes from. The question is, can you produce at the scale at which the need is there through natural sources? And this clear answer, without a shadow of doubt, is no.
Okay.
You need chemical fertilizers to do that. You can do this in niches, and people do niche in natural farming. Organic farming is a niche. But let's not fool ourselves and believe that this can become the mainstream food for a population of 1.4 billion. Not going to happen in your lifetime and mine.
But was it not during our PL 370 days after which we used, in especially in the northwestern parts of our country where excessive chemicals were used, that it impacted water tables and all that? Is it a myth, or
There,
is
there,
it about kind of nitrogen fixation not happening properly, or
there are issues related to misuse
overuse?
use of fertilizers, no doubt about it. It is a problem which is well recognized by both the fertilizer industry as well as the government. Okay.
I guess we are going to agri and fertilizer. Let's come back. I'll pull you back to chemicals right
But
now.
I will caution you again here that fertilizers and agri inputs are all products of the chemical industry again.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
Okay.
Interesting.
So anyway, come back to your.
Why is it been that this belt between Surat and Mumbai seems to have kind of concentrated activity? Is there a natural advantage they have, or is it just sheer enterprise?
The mother demand, when the chemical industry first started in India, just prior to independence, I think the industry which was most developed was the textile industry. Okay, so India had a textile industry which was reasonably sized. Not as big as it is now, but then for the time. And the first industries that came about to serve that need, and that's how they came about in Maharashtra, in Gujarat. What also happened were two other things. One is the Bombay High gas field, Bombay High oil field is, as the name suggests, off Bombay High, off Bombay. So refining capacities came up in Bombay. We have two refineries in HPCL and BPCL refinery in Mumbai. And I told you the mother plant for all chemicals is
Commodity.
are the refineries.
Yeah, yeah.
At the
Okay.
same time, in Gujarat, what happens is that the gas pipeline first landed in Gujarat, so you had that as a catalyst for growth.
Okay.
And then I think over the years, there is a little bit of a clustering effect that comes into play, and that's how most of the industries have been, around this part
Okay.
of the country.
But it's not as if there are some natural advantages over there or something like that. Nothing that kind. I mean, it could develop in Vizag, Vijayawada, the eastern coast also. I mean, if
Absolutely, and I have been a firm believer that it needs to. I think we are too concentrated in Gujarat in particular, Maharashtra less so nowadays for various reasons. But I think India is too big a country for the chemical industry to be served just out from Western India. So we are seeing now Hyderabad, the Vizag area has developed a cluster. There is a small cluster in West Bengal near Haldia. There are clusters which are emerging in Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka. Mangalore is a cluster as well. So the mother plants, I come back to that. The refineries and the petrochemical complexes are best situated along the coastlines.
okay.
Because I mean, you can just get your crude oil. We import 85% of the crude oil that we need, so we can import all the oil that we want. If you have got surpluses, we can export those surpluses of products that you have made, etc. So you have these. The ports in these areas, they become kind of the centers around which chemical industry develops.
But Ravi sir, all these big companies, I mean, one hears of names like Deepak Nitrate and NGL Fine and these Inoxes of the world. They're all into commodity chemicals or they're into specialty and fine chemicals also. I mean, let's put it this way, are the big names more other than Reliance? Reliance, of course, is commodity, but all the other big boys, right, from Atul and all these guys, these are into commodity or
Yeah.
specialty chemicals?
So the line distinction between them is blurring,
Mm-hmm.
because it has become a very, very hyper competitive space today. People like to believe that they are in the fine and specialty chemicals business, but unless you have really some edge in terms of technology, performance, etc., it is very hard. It's very hard for me to say that they are in specialty products. Uh, because really it has come to the case that these products now have become fewer and fewer.
But in your experience, where are we operating in the pyramid? Are we at the bottom of the pyramid or somewhere?
Somewhere in the middle, I
Okay.
would say.
So the story is same like every other industry, I guess, then.
I would agree. I would agree with that. Yes, yes.
So which brings me to logically to the other question I had. Is there a policy support? Is there a lot of policy focus from the government and at a state level and central level, or is it kind of lacking, or what is the industry now looking at?
So one of the big challenges to the industry is really around uh, in most parts of the other parts of the world today, if you see, the chemical industry really operates in clusters which are clearly earmarked for chemical manufacturing, because all said and done, chemical manufacturing is a hazardous operation. Uh, it is the risks need to be managed, okay, and they are managed, but the hazard cannot be removed. So you need to be careful of where you place the industry. So most countries have set up dedicated areas where the chemicals companies have been urged to go and then set up their manufacturing units. Unfortunately, India has failed to do that kind of zoning. So, I mean, just to give you the example that you all know, Bhopal, I mean, Bhopal
Yeah.
would not have been the disaster it was if it were not for the fact that right next to the factory fence, there were residential,
Correct, correct, correct.
in Thane Belapur today, or you go to Dombivli in Bombay, I mean, you had the chemical units. It started off as an industrial center, and then eventually people started living around it, and then it becomes a problem. Uh, so the policy initiative, which I think the government recognizes this today. I
Is
mean,
there a national chemical policy of something that kind? Is it there?
it has been in the works for some time, but it is not
Maybe you
have.
and I need to work on it.
It comes on the front burner, then goes back to the back burner, etc., etc. But what has been there is a policy of creating dedicated clusters in different coastal states. Gujarat has already done one, and the other coastal states, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu is talking about one, West Bengal, Orissa, all are also in the process of creating these clusters.
Is
Now,
the lethargy, I'm trying to link to your earlier point, is the lethargy because it's not a big job creator kind of a segment? Is that part of the reason? Because it creates a lot of money. There's a lot of money opportunity.
so
But direct employment,
yeah,
like
so
you said last time, that, you know.
the direct employment in bulk chemical production particularly is not very large. But bear in mind that there is indirect employment from industries that use those inputs and then go on to make other kind of stuff. So I think one has to look at the whole picture. And
Okay.
that's something that we have, the industry has also failed to do, is to convince the government that, look, despite all the problems in the industry, the safety issues, etc., etc., it's still a vital industry that you need to support and encourage.
I'm
So
surprised there is no, the Amrit Bharat or policy on chemical or something like that. I'm
there have
quite
been,
surprised.
there is no national chemical policy as of,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
but there have been, kind of reports and statements saying that we need to build competencies. One of the rude awakenings was COVID, when we had, supply chains seriously disrupted, and we were not able to get many of the stuff that we wanted. So there was, clamor that we need to build capabilities, particularly in pharma. Interestingly, I want to stress this point here. In many of the pharma, the drugs that you and I use, the APIs, the active ingredients that I talked about, the paracetamol, for example, the raw materials which you need to build that are not made in India. So they were all coming from China, and so when disruptions happen, can you imagine if India would run out of paracetamol tomorrow? I mean, what
Yeah.
we have substantial capacity for paracetamol. We did till recently have capacity to make the raw materials that needed to make paracetamol when we were dependent on imports. And
Our feedstock for paracetamol comes from elsewhere?
it used to come from China. So
Wow.
the government recognized that post-COVID, there was a recognition, and a PLI scheme was launched for the pharma sector and some of the key raw materials which are required. For example, the another key raw material is the penicillins. The
Right.
penicillin, the base raw material to make all penicillins, the first and the second generation penicillins at least, all came from China. China, the growth of China's industry obliterated penicillin raw material production globally. There were
Okay.
5 plants in India; they all shut down, and the only ones standing were the ones in China. So
Wow.
when this happened, the government said, "Hey, this is not acceptable. I mean, we need to support an industry, even if it means putting in some money, doing that. We need to have that capability within the country." And I'm glad to tell you that some of these projects have actually now come into operation, and they are functioning.
Oh, that's
Uh,
revealing. It's a geopolitical risk as big as anything else, you know.
it, it is. It is.
And
I
it's
mean,
linked to lifeline. I mean,
so
people,
we talk about the dependence that we have on
semiconductors, yeah.
conductors and defense, and we talk about food security, all of that. But there is also nutrition security, which is the
Yeah.
nutrients, the fertilizers. There is also the pharma industry security. So you need Of course, you need to be judicious about these things, right? I mean, you don't want to set up industries which are uncompetitive. But if you can lend a helping hand a little bit in the vulnerable stages of the industry, then I think it serves a purpose. It serves a national need. And the good news is that this has happened now, and I just wish there were more to come.
I
Uh,
was I was reading somewhere that this new semiconductor outlay of $1 trillion which the government has made right now, apparently that is also going to require the chemical industry kind of tying its shoelaces and running with the industry, because I read a very interesting book actually. This is a book called, The Material World. Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Okay.
it kind of talks about you know the simple things like silica, sand, steel, and what it says is that at the core of everything from millions of years, it's chemical reactions which are kind of happening. So
Uh,
at the base of any industry, there seems to be.
Absolutely. Semiconductors would not be possible if it
Yeah,
not for the chemical industry and
yeah, yeah,
need.
yeah,
And interestingly, the nature of the chemicals that are needed are of extremely high purity and specifications. Uh,
yeah.
you know,
And gases.
and gases. So it could be something as simple as ammonia,
Yeah.
uh, but ammonia of 99.99999% pure, uh, which we don't make because for one there was no market, and now that there is a market, people are beginning to look at some of these opportunities as
So
well.
would you say there is visionary thinking happening in the sector, or is it only commercial thinking? I mean, let's be
Uh,
very, or
I,
people
I
are just making money, or are they doing some amount of vision?
I wish I could say there is visionary thinking in the industry. I think one of my criticisms is that the industry has been largely reactionary.
Okay.
I
And how are the colleges doing, sir? The UDCTs. I mean, I've heard of only from our time. It's UDCT and maybe LIT Nagpur and a couple of industry departments are.
I guess the caveat here is that I am also
I
UDCT grad.
know you're
So,
the president of the
so,
alumni
so
association.
I will I will naturally have a nice things to say about UDCT. Uh, but on a general level, I mean, I think on a serious level, I think one of the failures of India's chemical industry growth has been its inability to leverage industry academia partnerships, which is a win-win for both sides. And I think that is one of the distinguishing features of the Chinese industry, where they have taken very large bets in partnership with academic institutions to develop technologies for the first time in the world,
Yeah.
where companies have gone and somebody putting in $1 billion project on based on a technology that the company has funded in partnership with a research institute locally.
Okay.
I don't know of any example that India has done that.
It's quite sad. But other than UDCT and LIT, any other colleges or institutions which are at a slightly better?
I think all of the IITs have chemical engineering, chemistry as areas of research as well as teaching, academic teaching. Uh, but one of the issues I think which confronts the industry today is that uh, chemical engineering is no longer seen as a priority for the youth of today for various reasons. I mean, I think one of the casualties of the IT boom has been that it has sucked really all engineering, irrespective of the discipline,
Yeah, I understand.
into it, and it has led to a hollowing out of some of these.
It's not very glamorous anymore.
It's not. It's never been glamorous, but I think there are significant opportunities for career growth, which within the industry. There are good examples of companies with good corporate governance, good policies, global presence. All the things that you need for a career.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the numbers are few. Uh,
Okay.
and they have not been able to match the kind of pay packages, remunerations that the IT industry has been able to give.
Okay.
It is a problem. I think now the IT industry, which is faced with its own set of challenges, maybe some of that will change. I don't
But
know.
then, but this will be a new generation which comes in because the guys who've already gone, which
Correct.
which kind of brings me. You have, in fact, not me. You have brought us to logically to the last question of mine, where I think we can spend a little 5, 6 minutes extra, which is careers and business opportunities, and that's where people are looking at. So if let's say there is a lot of startup activity I have seen from many of our clients, and I'm seeing it all over the place. Can chemical industry be a good opportunity for startups to kind of small investment startups, and in what domains? Let's say there is an outlay of maybe between, let's say, 5 to 30 crores or something like that, or even large, but let's stick to the smaller outlays. Let's say 5 to 30 crore kind of outlay. Where do you think is
So
the
when you are talking about startups and companies raising resources, the chemical industry, and I'm setting aside pharma here. Okay,
yeah.
I don't want to get into that. Let's say the material industry has not been a great place for startup activity. Uh, uh, so there are two. The one possibility, and I think it's something that India has also leveraged, is offering services, intellectual services, like making things at very small volumes. It's in the industry parlance, it is custom synthesis, custom manufacturing.
Oh, so
Where
it's not services from the IT services point of
no,
view.
no, no, no.
Okay,
It,
okay,
it,
I
it
understand.
is,
Okay.
these are chemistry intensive services which companies are providing. Uh, all kinds of companies do it. Many of the pharma companies, the big pharma companies like Dr. Reddy's and the Sun Pharmas of the world, they also offer these kind of services. But I think that is one area where I'm seeing some startup activity.
Can you detail it a little more in half a minute? I mean, how
Here, what you do is the client is mostly in the Western world. Uh, uh, so they are companies who are typically innovators of pharma, they are innovators of agro, or of specialty
food?
materials. So they need a lot of inputs, and they are doing a lot of trial and error. Okay. So they need small volumes to be made. They need testing to be done. They need impurity and purity profiling to be done, etc. Now, the number of chemists or engineers that they can throw at a problem is limited by the fact that costs in those countries are high. So if you had to throw one PhD at a problem in the US, you could
Mm.
probably throw 10 in India. So that is an opportunity, and there
Okay.
are several small size companies which are looking at that opportunity.
And
What
how does one come to? Are there kind of industrial fairs or something like that where one can go
There
to?
are there are fairs which happen both globally as well as in India. For example, my company does a fair which is now the largest fair for the chemical industry, but
Right,
not so much in custom synthesis, custom manufacturing, but in the broad chemical space.
right, right, right.
We do that, but there are international events which happen where many of these companies go. They
Which is the
participate.
premier event for the industry globally, apart from Chemical Weekly of yours, which happens here?
There, in globally, there is there are industry there are shows which cater to different segments of the industry. There
Okay,
will be
okay.
one which is catering to pharma. Pharma is the elephant in the room. So there are
Correct.
multiple shows which cater to pharma. There are
Mm-hmm.
some shows which will cater to, for example, ag chem industry. So some would do water treatment, so there are niche kind of shows happening all
Okay.
over the world, including in Western Europe, in North America, in China, in Japan. So somebody who wants to venture into these areas would do well to maybe initially visit some of these things, get a feel of what it is all about. Uh,
Okay.
but I will caution only one thing. I mean,
Mm.
the putting steel on the ground, unlike in an IT startup or something where all you have is a laptop, and you could be operating from the a Starbucks or whoever. Here you are very often have steel on the ground or a laboratory in which you have plonked down significant resources.
Right.
So you need to have a very clear business plan, a clear strategy in place, some idea and a good assessment of both your capability and where does that stand in the context of the world. Uh,
Okay. I guess
Sometimes
private equity interest and all, once that comes in, I guess that will
yes,
be.
those are there are people who are looking at these things. But my lament with the private equity industry in India is that they are still in the chemical space. They are looking to invest in safe bets and not
Yeah,
in,
yeah, yeah.
in risky.
I can imagine where their business model is, like that, I guess. Yeah.
So that's the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
But there are some, opportunities. Many of the academic institutions today, ICT, for example, UDC, it's now called ICT, the IIT, they all have incubation centers that they have.
Right. Right.
So I know, for example, at UDCT, ICT, there are several companies which are being mentored, not in the core chemical, but in food, in pharma, etc., which are all domains in which ICT has courses and research programs.
Also, sir, a lot of people are now, for example, a lot of animal protein guys are moving into plant and, artificial proteins. In every industry, there seems to be an opportunity now. Right. What
Yeah,
about the job scene, Ravi, sir?
so for a good chemical engineer, I don't think there is a shortage of jobs. I mean, I,
Okay.
I think if anything, the problem is the reverse. The industry laments that it is not able to find the talent that it needs. One of the
Does it
other
have to be an engineer or is it skill-based diploma?
very important question. I mean, one of the things that is the fallout of the emptying out of the industry to IT is that the industry, and I know several companies are now willing to go with just BSc, MSc kind of students, and they are willing to put them through the training program that they have. They have instilled those programs internally. And almost like a classroom, they are able to take in 40, 50 students a year and pull them through the process and make them, fit for purpose. So that is
So like every industry has marquee employers like a Unilever or a TCS or Infosys. In this
oh,
industry, who are the marquee employers? I mean, let's leave Reliance aside, other than Reliance, I mean.
so I would say some of the publicly listed companies which are there, the people like Atul and there are of course the international companies are all here. I mean the BASF, the Dow, the DuPont, the Evonik of the world, they all operate they have operations in India. They may not always have manufacturing, but they do have a presence here. So they are obviously targets because they are able to give you career paths which could be global. And,
Right.
I know several people who have joined at these companies and moved on to global positions, like you hear about in the levers and all that.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
That has also happened in the chemical space.
I think Dow Chemicals also has got some Indians now up there and
So,
everything.
so yes, very much, very much. There are
And are there good trading opportunities also?
yes, for the simple reason that India is a very large importer of chemicals. We have a trade gap which is, I think, roughly of the order of about $30 billion.
Wow.
Our net imports are roughly of that order, and that is all imported. So there are all kinds of players here, mom and pop operations, more corporatized. Some of the international trading houses are present here. So they are very much active in the space. A large part of the growth of Indian chemical demand over the last decade has been taken by imports.
Okay.
Because we were unable to ramp up our manufacturing capabilities fast enough.
And
Uh,
that's in the specialty and fine chemicals or in every domain, basically,
Across the board, and
across.
more so in the commodities because that requires capex and significant capex, etc.
Okay. Excellent. So, sir, good overview, Ravi sir. Thank you very much for spending time. I think, especially the youngsters and business, I must end by kind of saying that I did review it in the beginning. I go through it every fortnight. I think amongst the industrial magazines that come into my office, this is
Okay.
so beautifully. The compendium is awesome. And your keynote or your editorial, it's kind of a progressive. In the I read it every time, so it gives me a progressive kind of a rundown of what's happening in the industry every 15 days.
Right.
Thank you for and I look forward to meeting you again and probably inviting you to certain academia things that we are involved in
I'm
and
happy to participate
thank
in
you
that.
very much, Ravi sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys, for watching. I think you guys will learn a lot from this brief interaction. I will take on your behalf, invite everybody to connect with you through Chemical Weekly if anybody wants to. And of
I'm on
course,
LinkedIn, so you
the
can
business
reach
and
out.
careers team is there for you to kind of look at. Thank you, Ravi sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.